Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the Full10Yard NFL podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full10Yards NFL podcast. I am your host Sam Moores, and today, this is it. It's the Week 2 recap. We're fully into the swing of the season now, and today joining me to go through all of Sunday's games is Liam Horsley. He's been on the podcast before a couple of times. He's a resident Chiefs fan at Full10Yards as well, and we'll get into that game later because it was very interesting to say the least. But as always, Liam, it's great to have you on to talk about the games, and we had a very interesting night last night. Lots of close games. A few shocks in there as well. Just it's going to be good, exciting to sort of talk through them all, isn't it?
Yeah, some overtimes as well, which is always fun for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Get some free football. But yeah, it was a good weekend. Good weekend of action. I think some of the offenses still struggled, but that led to some fun turnovers, some high-scoring games regardless. So yeah, we got some good games to talk about from week 2. I think week 2 is better than week 1 in terms of the game perspective. So yeah, should be fun.
We're gonna start with a game that I didn't expect to be up here. When I started watching the game 24 hours ago, to be honest with you, I thought, this Washington Denver game is going to be a bit rubbish, but got it at a mad finish, ending with a Russell Wilson Hail Mary, but then a 2-point conversion failing. The Washington Commanders moved to 2-0 after taking command in the second half of a fiery matchup against Wilson and Payton's Broncos. Denver were the better team, I'd say, in the first half. The defense was actually manhandling the Washington O-line, and their offense had some explosive plays as well, including a Marvin Mims 60-yard touchdown. Russ was actually, he looked good as well, carrying on his steady play from last week. Last week he was quite conservative, but he didn't turn the ball over or anything, and was a lot better than he was last year. This year we saw some deep throws in there. The shot to Mims felt like there was Tyler Lockett downfield there for him. It felt like the Seattle days, which was really good. They were 21-3 up, and then the game changed. Midway through the second quarter, Russell scrambled left, and Jarmin Davis strip sacked him actually, and Washington went down to score with a Curtis Samuel jet sweep, setting up a red zone opportunity. And then Sam Howell found Logan Thomas in for a touchdown on fourth and goal. Thomas was hit on the helmet by Kareem Jackson on that play too, who was then ejected. And then they made the 2-point try to make it 21-11, and that was a real momentum changer because the Commanders got a stop, and Howell led the team to field goal range to make it a one-score game just before halftime, 21-14. And then the first play of the second half was mental as well, because Deron Payne burst through the middle to sack Russ Wilson despite being held, and produced a 3-and-out for the Broncos offense. And from then it was all Commanders. They tied the game on the next drive. Sam Howell with a beautiful TD throw to Terry McLaurin over the head to two defenders to get in there, and then a miscommunication between Wilson and Cortland Sutton saw him throw an interception right to Emmanuel Forbes, who's got a habit of being around the football in college. He carried that on into the NFL, but they didn't take advantage of the turnover. But one thing that did happen is Denver they sort of might start to lose the trench battle as the second half progressed. Rush just got sacked after sacked, which he didn't. It didn't happen in the first 6 quarters of the season for the Broncos. He was sacked 7 times in the end. The Commanders' D-line really showing why they were paid well, why obviously a lot of them were drafted highly as well. Payne, Chase Young with a couple in there as well. And then what won the game for the Commanders, what set them up with a big lead before the Broncos' comeback was their run game. The Broncos' defense just couldn't stop Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, whether it was a run or a pass to Gibson, which it was on the occasion. The two of them, especially Robinson, took over the game, and the Commanders were suddenly 35-24 up with in the fourth quarter. They were heavy favourites with a few minutes left. They forced Denver to a field goal with around 2 minutes left, and with Chase Young and Montez Sweat meeting for a sack on the third and goal when Denver were their 10 points down. They were settled for a field goal. They went onside kick. They almost made the onside kick, which surprised me actually. To be fair, that would have been a more thrilling end. But they forced a 3-and-out for the Commanders, and with just under a minute, Russell Wilson had no timeouts, but he had a minute to get down the field, to get 8 points to take the game to overtime. A scramble on 4th down, a 15-yard pass to Colton Sutton, set up a Hail Mary opportunity from the 50-yard line. The ball fell at the goal line. It was flicked up by the Washington Commanders defender and caught by Brandon Johnson for his second touchdown of the game. But the 2-point try was no good. Ben St. Juste had looks to probably. I think he probably did commit a PI on Sutton. He sort of he has a bit of a jazzy pull in there before the pass was made. The ref didn't call it, and that was a controversial way to end a thrilling game for it certainly was. And one thing that I did actually notice as well is that in this game for the Commanders, Sam Howell threw to 8 different receivers of over 20 yards each. So they were spreading the ball around, but the offense, the Commanders really took over in the second half, and a little bit of old school rust couldn't stop that because the Commanders were really good yesterday, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, their defense was really good, and like you said earlier, Brian Robinson I think was probably the difference. I think he was 18 carries for 87 yards. I think he added another 42 on the ground from 2 receptions, so over 100 yards there combined. I think he's 3rd now in fantasy points for running back positions. Obviously, can't remember who number 2 is, but CMC clearly there at number 1. But I thought he was a good difference. Like you said, the defensive line got home in the second half. But if people are going to go back and rewatch this game, they're not going to see much great quarterback play from either side for me. You won't see two quarterbacks hold the ball in weird positions when they shouldn't, more than they did in this game. Their time to throw was really, really high. They were holding the ball. They were getting sacked. They were getting throwaways down to the right sideline, just rolling out right. It was almost watching the same player. Like Sam Howell gets compared to Russ quite a bit. In terms of how he doesn't quite see the field and get sacked quite a lot. And if you watch this game back, you'll see that that's 2 quarterbacks that just don't quite know the internal clock. Maybe because Russ is a bit older now, can't scramble like he used to. And Sam Howell, unfortunately, has always been bad against pressure and taking sacks. But yeah, it was a really fun game, entertaining game. The Hail Mary was crazy. It was very Broncos-esque that they had this crazy Hail Mary play that I kind of turned my TV off and was like, nah, nothing's going to happen here. All of a sudden, looked at my iPad like 10 minutes later as I was going upstairs and was like, hang on, they scored a touchdown. But then, like you said, the 2-point conversion didn't get in. I think it was probably a PI, but I could see why the refs didn't give it because I don't think the pass was like accurately onto Sutton. I think it was still kind of out of his path. And it was a little bit of a bang play, but if that was the Chiefs, I'd be begging for the PI there. But it felt very Broncos and Russ-esque that they did this crazy Hail Mary play, and then they didn't get the 2-point. But yeah, a really, really fun game. Good win for the Commanders. Go 2-0. Sean Payton's 0-2. Will we see Jared Stidham soon? I think maybe, but we'll see. Because I don't think he's played as bad as he did last year. They're moving the ball better than like any offense in the league. I was reading a statistic in terms of like how often they convert 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down. They're actually number 1 in the league, but they just can't score and they just don't have enough drives because every drive is 13 plays, dink and dunk. There's no explosive plays unless Marvin Mims is involved. But yeah, fun game. But yeah, not the greatest quarterback battle ever, but I didn't think we'd see as many points as we did. So at least it was good to watch.
Yeah, I share the same opinion of you. I think the Broncos look a lot better than they did last year, so especially offensively. Like me, they just come unstuck when especially in the red zone or when they need a big play to be made. A lot of the time, it's a throwaway or something like that. And I was watching this with Charlie last night, and he just whenever anything happened, he just wasn't surprised by it because it's just been. I think obviously they only scored over 20 points 6 times last year or something like that. So it's just obviously this is a lot more than 20 points, but it's weird. I find it odd how that I don't think I'd see a Sean Payton team that get out coached like that much in the second half though. That's what I was like, oh, okay, this isn't good because they had a 3-score lead and ultimately can end up losing.
Yeah, it's not good to be outcoached by Ron Rivera in the modern day era. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think he trusts his QB. It gets to a point where you got a 3-score lead and you kind of know they're just going to run it up the gut. Let's try and waste time, kill the clock, and we'll win this game. But unfortunately, if the other team knows that and they stop the run, like the Commanders did in the second half, and then they get sacked, it's very difficult for you to go back and win that game without points. And I think Charlie mentioned in the group, like, okay, we scored 20, but then we got to 20 and decided to stop playing offense. And that was exactly how I felt. It got to 20 points and it was like, okay, right, every drive is just stalling now, either via a sack or via a terrible second and 10 run play. But yeah, fair play to the Commanders for coming back, because I didn't think they would. When it got to that 3-score lead, I thought that was probably the game over. And they came back on their defense. And then, to be fair to him, some good play calling from Eric Bieniemy. I thought that second half he really changed the game plan and mixed things up on first and second down rather than just running it a lot on first down. And I think tight ends as well, they got way more involved in the second half than they did in the first. And yeah, come out with the victory, and they're 2-0, and I think the NFC East is something like 7-1 now. So yeah, it was a good day for them, but we'll see how long Russ lasts, because I just think Sean Payton's too good of a coach to sit there. If he gets to 0-4, I just think he's the type of guy that's like, I can't just live at 0-4. I need to win some games. He's one of the most competitive guys we've seen in the NFL. So watch this space.
Yeah, encouraging signs for the Broncos in some aspects, but it's still not where they expected to be when they made that trade for Russell Wilson, for sure. On to the next game with two teams that have entirely new quarterbacks this year, the Packers and the Falcons. This was another game that came right down to the wire, because the Packers defense was straight at the Atlanta offense in the red zone, but their lack of offensive firepower, really, without Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, and obviously David Bakhtiari too, was what cost them the game in the fourth quarter. Really, this one was odd. This one was odd because it was like I think both teams are going to be playoff teams. I that's from what I see, because I think I'm really impressed with what I've seen from both teams over the past couple of weeks. In this game, Desmond Ridder did a lot more against Carolina last week. I think he had double the pass attempts, maybe even triple the pass attempts. Obviously, more yards as well. They moved back when the Packers took a lead. They actually switched back to the run game, and so I don't really know why they did that in the first place, really. But no, I mean, the Packers defense was great. I think they were 2 of 5 in the red zone. This game was real back and forth the whole game, and it was a Bijan Robinson led comeback that the Packers couldn't stop in the end, but they were holding. The Falcons dominated a lot of the possession in this game. They were the better team offensively, but the Packers defense really impressed me yesterday.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm a bit worried about. They did very Joe Barry stuff down the stretch.
Yeah, but that's true. That's true.
Where I understand this. I wouldn't even say it's Fangio-esque. Sometimes they don't play two safeties, but they just can't stop the run. Like it feels like in whatever scenario, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, whether they're against a good rush team, bad rush team, they find a way at some point in the game to stopping the run. But I would agree with you. In the first half, they were just rushing Jordan Love all over the place, and they were getting constant pressure. So I agree. The first half and their pass defense was good, but the second half they just got caned on the run. I think it was something like 132 rush yards in the second half. Desmond Ridder even got 39 yards, something that he didn't quite do the week before. But yeah, it was a very Arthur Smith Falcons type display. Dominate in the trenches, dominate in the run game. Like you mentioned there, from an offensive perspective, I feel like David Bakhtiari was quite missed in the second half. They just didn't have enough on the offensive line to drop back and pass it as much as they wanted to. Because to be fair to LaFleur, he did drop back and try and give Jordan Love a chance to go win the game. But dominant performance on the ground. I think Ridder was lucky to not throw 2 or 3 picks. I don't know what you think. I know they did actually let him pass the ball more, but he had 1 pick and he had at least 2 more where I was like, oh, not good.
Yeah, the Jair Alexander one that he just dropped. Like that, I mean, AJ Terrell did the same thing against Jordan Love as well. There's one that Terrell should have picked off as well, going back the other way, but it was just like, but that Ridder wasn't great, but a lot of the time, I think what they want him to do is that's like the throw to Kyle Pitts last week, the one because I think had about 30 yards in the air until that point, and they had like a 40-yard bomb to Kyle Pitts down. As long as he can make that throw, then that's what they're asking him to do with this offense. It's very checked down. It's very 4-yard gain when he is allowed to pass. And obviously they're relying on a lot on the ground game, especially Bijan Robinson, who had an amazing day, like we said. But yeah, again, when I watch him, he just reminds me of Ryan Tannehill, this is the point. I feel like I'm watching Tannehill with the Titans, with Arthur Smith, 2-3 years ago. That's exactly what I feel like I'm watching. Yeah.
I wish they'd let him throw the ball as deep as they did with Ryan Tannehill, because at least Tannehill gets those 4 throws a game where he just winds it up, and you're like, okay, he's gonna chuck this 55 yards in the air, but.
He can't feel pressure either. Tannehill can't feel pressure, and the same thing with Ridder. It's like last week, I think he was pressured 5 times and sat 4 times out of it.
Yeah.
It's
can't
very
feel
similar.
pressure. Yeah, can't feel pressure, and they're strong, so they don't care body type if they get sacked. Do you know what I mean? Like as much as others, they're willing to stand in. So having those two habits combined is not great. Like the ability to like take a hit and be like, right, I can take these hits, but then also not being able to feel pressure coming from your blind side is two things that just do lead to a lot of hits. And yeah, I agree. It is very similar. It's the same offense. I just wish they would. Now they've gone with Ridder and they're saying, right, he's our guy. I just wish they would let him kind of pass down the field a bit more, especially in the intermediate era. But maybe as they go week on week, that'll change. You know, they're 2-0 now. If they win again next week, every week, maybe that just builds. But I'm just worried it's going to stay like this and it'll get to a point where, okay, you've hit your ceiling now. Like, if you don't let him pass, he won't develop. And if you win all these games, how are you going to get a better quarterback? But this was a good performance from them as a team. I thought their defense looked better than it did in week one as well. They got a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. Like I said, you said they dropped a pick, but they also had a screen pass in the first half that kind of flew up in the middle of the air. That happened twice, and no one came down with it. But even then, I was like, okay, potential turnover. They had a 4th down stop. So yeah, I think the defense looks better than I thought. Offensive line looks really good. Bijan looks great. Algier looks great. Ridder looks fine on the ground, but they do need to pass the ball a little bit better. They've got Drake London involved now. Now they need to get Kyle Pitts involved, or else it could be time to trade him and get some picks back. But
I really like Matt Collins too. I'm a big fan of Matt Collins. I loved him in Miami. I like him in Vegas as well. He's great in special teams as well because he's a gunner too. But with him, there was that thing. There was the heels in the back of the end zone. That they could have had a bigger lead in this game because the Falcons, they dominated. Like they had 10, 15 minutes more time of possession. They had 250 more yards than the Packers as well. But like I said, the Packers defense kept them in this game in the red zone, where they were forcing Ridder to make a pass and he couldn't make that pass. And sometimes he'd scramble, like he got the Russian TD. But I think what takeaway from this game is I think both teams. I'm confident about. The Packers without Aaron Jones concern me as well because AJ Dillon on his own couldn't do it.
Agree.
That's one thing that Ollie said yesterday, and I watched it, and I was like, yeah, true. Because I thought that obviously because it's this Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur offense, whatever, right? Obviously a lot of the time they try and run the ball, successfully, and they couldn't do that without Aaron Jones. But I just wanted to finish this. What's your take on Jordan Love? Because from the first 2 games, because I'm not wowed. I just sort of see it and I think, oh, it's a West Coast offense QB. You can make most of the throws, but can't. He misses. I mean, he missed a couple in this game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so I liked him in college. Thought the draft pick was atrocious because I wanted him to go somewhere he would actually play because he needs to play. He didn't play that much. He got injured in high school. Didn't play that much. Didn't play that much throughout college. He wasn't like a 4-year starter. I thought last week he looked better than I thought, and I was thinking, okay, wow, this could look even better because he was reading the defense well, played really well on 3rd down where it was kind of less scheme throws, more like, okay, right, I've got to hit a man in a tight window, which he did, but he didn't do that against the Falcons. That was very much Jordan Love of last year where every time it was 3rd down, it was just like, had no idea what was going on, picking the wrong player to pass to, not checking his mic to work out who's going to rush from the linebacker position. So I like him in general. I like QBs that are big, strong, can throw the ball down the field, which I think he can do. I think he can move as well. I'd like to see them roll him out a little bit more. I think they're making him stand in the pocket more than I'd like. But I'd agree with you that I'm not wowed. But I think he looked better than the guy he played against, even though his stats are worse.
And you said about moving as well. The Packers' best drive of this game was when they hit like 3 or 4 play action passes on the same drive. And then I think it was just out of the first half. Sorry, first drive of the second half. They 3 and out. They got the ball back, and then it was like 2 or 3 play action passes on the same drive, and then it led to a touchdown. And that was the best drive the Packers had all game when they got him to move about a bit more. Yeah,
and they scored another touchdown where the first throw was him running to his right, throwing to Wicks, I think, and then the second play he decided to scramble and ran for like, I don't know what it was, 20, 30 yards. Got hit on the head as well as he fell and started squaring up to a Falcons lineman, which I liked. And then it just seemed like second half, they just weren't calling those plays. It was kind of after the first drive, like you said, the next 3 drives that were nearly basically all 3 and out. Just stand in the pocket, make a play. AJ Dillon 2 runs up the middle for max 3 or 4 yards every time. And I think LaFleur called a great game week 1, didn't call a great game in week 2. And we'll see if Jordan Love develops. He's only started like 4 NFL games. But I think after week one, people, maybe Packers fans especially, were a little bit too high. Especially our resident Full 10 Yards Packers fan in the bar, screaming at me saying Jordan Love is him, and I was like, I actually like Jordan Love, but you're getting a bit ahead of your skis right now. So I did find that funny. But
he was very quiet yesterday. Very quiet yesterday. So
yeah, I don't know who they've got next week, but it's a big game because I'd like to see how he bounces back from a poor second half. Because if he comes out, starts the game well, that's another tick box for me. It was like, okay, mentally he's got this rather than just one good week. But yeah, I agree with you. He didn't wow me, but I'd say he's better than a few QBs across the league that we'll talk about today.
Yeah, and as you said as well, props off to the Falcons defense, who they spent a lot of money on it on the off season, and they did look really good towards the end of it, especially. On to the final game, we're going to go into in real detail before we whittle through the rest of the games. This one was an epic coaching matchup that was won by Mike McDaniel to put Tua Tagovailoa 5-0 in his career versus the Pats and Bill Belichick, which is an amazing stat. He's one of only three QBs to be undefeated against Belichick in that span as well. I think Belichick showed the league the game plan of how to slow down the chunk plays that Miami like to create. He had 3 safeties. He sort of left Miami to beat them by short passes and their run game as well. And he actually kind of forced Miami to run up the middle as well, which I thought was interesting because that's not what they do normally. They're very heavily outside zone. They got off to a great start. This one was an outside play, a big Salvon Ahmed run to the left, which set them up with 1st and goal at 6. But New England played tough in the red zone, which they did all night. The Tua lost his footing on 3rd down actually, which I was like, oh no, what's going on here from the very start? Forced him to a field goal. And then the next drive, they actually looked to have a big completion to Demario Douglas deep in Dolphins territory, but Bradley Chubb, he was dropped in coverage on the snap as well. Actually, this is a big game for Bradley Chubb. Actually, his best game with the Dolphins by far. He came from behind to strip the ball from the receiver, and Miami got the ball back. So that's one or two big plays he made in this game. And it was but it was just back and forth. It was a tight game until midway through the second. Some punts here and there, and then Tua hit Waddle on a screen. So on 2nd and 19 for 28-yard gain that went into the red zone, and then Raheem Mostert was running through the middle for an 8-yard TD on 2nd and 3 to make it 10-0. Chad Rylander made his first ever NFL field goal attempt for a 49-yarder as well, the rookie, to put New England on the board at 10-3 before half-time, where Tua, just before half-time, hit another terrific throw, his best throw by far of the game, but he was okay yesterday, I thought. He wasn't bad or anything. But yeah, hit another terrific throw to Braxton Berrios on the right-hand side. He's got pressure on his left. He sort of moves over to the right, and Berrios is there at the 2-yard line, setting up a touchdown drive where he fed it to Tyreek at the 2-yard line to make it 17-3. What do you think of the Dolphins in the first half? Obviously, the first half game plan was great, and then the sort of Belichick learned in the second half, didn't he? And it created a real intense game towards the end.
Yeah, but I thought, if I was a Dolphins fan, which obviously I'm not, I would be much more happy about the run game. I felt like the offensive line blocked up a lot better from a run game perspective. Felt like Mike McDaniel called better plays from a run game. He was kind of matching the run plays up rather than just randomly chucking in a outside zone after they've done like 3 or 4 deep passes down the field, and like the offensive line's absolutely knackered from blocking, and then he just chucks an outside zone and it goes for -1 yards. I felt like this week he really paired the pass game and the run game well. The defense, I thought, for the Dolphins was pretty good, but it's hard to measure because I honestly hate watching this Patriots offense. Like how well they've done statistically for the first 2 weeks surprises me when you watch it, because the play calling is obviously it's better, but it's so basic, and you just sit there thinking,
it's just sideline throws to that's what it's like. It's just Devontae Parker jump balls, and try and find Kendrick Bourne somewhere because he's the only receiver who can get open. And if and it's Hunter Henry as well. That's Matt Jones' other favourite target. But for me, I think the New England offense is. I've been impressed by Mac, but play calling is not great, I don't think.
No, I don't love Mac either, but I agree with you that he's actually played better than I probably thought. Overall, it's hard to judge the Dolphins on this game because I think the Patriots offense did look so simple at times. It felt like the Dolphins didn't quite need to put their foot on their throat and kind of go for it. But I agree with you that I think Belichick did well, kind of stopping Tyreek as much as he could. Felt like it did open up Waddle a little bit, like you said, that big play where he got like 30 yards or 20 yards, wherever it was, and he missed that tackle. just showed for me. It was like, okay, they're focusing so much on Tyreek Hill here that you can see that Jalen Waddle's getting more open. But yeah, like I said, the run game better. Pass rush was pretty good for the Dolphins, I felt like, without Jalen Phillips, because he was a big miss. And overall, yeah, just one of those good performances where good teams have to go against other good teams and just win by a score sometimes. You're not going to blow everyone out. You're not going to have crazy offensive days, but you need to go in and win those games. And I felt like the Dolphins did very well at that. And like you said, Tua wasn't great, but he had three really good passes. And I think sometimes last year he might have those three passes, but then he might have four awful passes. Whereas I felt there was only one throw that it wasn't even intercepted. The interception was actually a crazy good play by Christian Gonzalez.
Yes,
There's only one play in the middle of the field which didn't get picked off that I thought, you shouldn't be throwing that there. But aside from that, I think it was just good, clever play. And nice to see Mostert look better because I didn't think he looked great in week one.
Was that the one that Kyle Duggar tipped over? Was that across the middle? Yeah. I noticed that as well. So midway through the third quarter, the momentum sort of began to turn towards New England as the Belichick's game plan started to work more and more, and Miami abandoned the run game, which McDaniel tends to do a lot when it doesn't work first go. Which is a shame because obviously that is what works a lot of the time for Miami, for Miami. But yeah, he did that, and then like I said, that pass by Kyle Duggar, if that was made across the middle to Ezra Karma, the Dolphins would have run away with this game, but it wasn't. It led to fourth down. Then Jason Sanders' 49-yard field goal was blocked by one of the best. I think that might be the best field goal block I've ever seen. Yeah, the Schooler comes in motion. He doesn't it with McDaniel. He comes in motion and then moves over just after obviously the ball snapped, and Sanders has no idea what's going on, and obviously it's blocked, and New England recover it. They start driving, but they do turn the ball over. Xavier Howard came down with an interception.
Terrible throw that.
Yeah, we've seen that's the thing. We've seen X do that so many times before because obviously he's not the best in coverage, but a lot of times he's tested like that, and he'll be just in front of a receiver, and he'll come away with the ball. That's a lot, especially deep downfield by the goal line as well. He had one against Josh Allen in the playoffs last year. It's the same situation. But yeah, Xavier Howard loves an interception like that. But yeah, that was a poor throw from Matt Jones, as you said, and it's for Devontae Parker, who again can't get separation for his life. So and X knows that. I haven't played against him in practice for like 4 or 5 years. So I think I will
say though, I find it impressive how Devontae Parker catches screens or quick outs and makes people miss for a man who has no speed whatsoever.
Yeah,
so fair play. He's carved a career out of not being very he's got worse as he's gotten older, but for him, I thought he actually looked okay for him. And obviously Juju caught a couple of passes as well, but I'm just sat there thinking come on, Juju, you got an extra $2 million to go to the Pats for this when you could have just been sat chilling with Patrick Mahomes getting third down passes in zone coverage rather than having to get assaulted. I don't know if you feel like this watching it from a Dolphins perspective, but every pass the Pats completed, it felt like someone was getting absolutely nailed because the only place you could put it was right on someone. It was just right. Whoever it was, it could be anyone apart from Hunter Henry, it felt like, and they were catching the ball and just getting absolutely nailed by a Dolphins defender just because there's no separation across that whole team for the Patriots at all.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the run game as well, the defense stepped up brilliantly compared to what it was last week. Raekwon Davis had a really good game, I thought, actually, because normally he gets a bit lost, and it's why in the nickel package anyway, you have Wilkins and Cedar. So we'll get to the end of the game quickly now. There was the Patriots got back into the game. They led Hunter Henry. Mac also on drive, actually, leading them downfield, and ended up with Hunter Henry touchdown after that block. Then the Dolphins scored on the next play was the 2 interception. Great go up and get it against Tyreek from Christian Gonzalez. They score with Ramondre Stevenson, and then there's that was massive long touchdown run from Mostert up the middle, like you said. He had a great day yesterday, over 100 yards, and he's by far the running back one for the Dolphins now. We saw a bit of Devon Archen yesterday, but he's not been present in training camp. Savon Ahmed's carved himself a really big role actually, and be interesting to see how that changes when Jeff Wilson comes back off IR. But for now, Mostert has really taken the Dolphins back forward on his own. And then the thing at the end of the game, Mike Gesicki gets the ball twice. New England needing a score to get back into the game after another missed field goal from Jason Sanders. This would have tied it to go to overtime, or if they went for two, they would have won the game. It was 3rd and 18 after a big Buddy Chubb set up 2nd and 18. Again, that was a clutch play from him because he's been poor in his time in Miami. And then Gesicki gets the 14-yard reception. It's 4th and 4. He gets a 2-yard reception. He notices Cole Strange to the right of him. He pitches the ball to Cole Strange is this close, that's down marker. But it was overturned. They ruled it as a first down. It was overturned, and it was short. And the Dolphins won just by the skin of their teeth there. But it was despite the defeat, I'm encouraged by how the Patriots played, but there are some worries. But I think the Dolphins, with the way they played yesterday, they'll be very thankful they won. But before, old Dolphins teams don't win that game. And I'm not sure, even though 2 is 5-0 v Belichick, that was the best the Patriots have played Miami in a long time. So that's an encouraging sign. I don't know if you have any other final thoughts on this game.
Well, one of my only final thoughts is the line judge. They can't overrule that first down. If there's a lateral to an offensive lineman for a first down, just give the first down. Like, you've got to give the first down there because you could hardly tell. It was so funny. They were like, "Oh yeah, you need like clear and obvious proof," and I'm looking at it like, that's not clear and obvious. And I was like, it's a lateral to an offensive lineman. We need to keep this game going, but they decided to call it short. But my only final thoughts were just worried about Mac's health if that offensive line is gonna block like that against the blitz, because that was a blitz play that Chubb got open on. I don't know who blitzed, but it wasn't him obviously, but someone else blitzed, and
it might be Van Ginkel. He had a really good game in replacement of Jalen Phillips, because that's the thing as well. Van Ginkel was one of Vic Fangio's favourite players. He played him at middle linebacker last week. He replaced David Long. He played him a lot in middle linebacker, especially in the nickel package again. But no, with Phillips, David Long played more, and David Long had a sack as well yesterday. Van Ginkel played on the edge a lot yesterday and got a sack and had another play, so it might have been him. But I think, go on.
Yeah, I just think a quarterback like Mac, he just can't move. He just roll out a little bit, and it's a bit like,
the Patriots' longest offensive play was a 15-yard Matt Jones scramble. Which I think says something. That says something. There's no big plays whatsoever in this offense.
No, and he had like 12-yard one that was called back as well. But I just think that was my kind of big takeaway. I was like, for the rest of the season, 0-2 is a bit of a death knell for most teams, but you'll get a couple that still maybe finish with a winning record for sure. And I'm thinking, okay, can the Patriots easy schedule in the middle of the season? Can they do anything? I was watching this being like, unless this offensive line can help them a bit more with these receivers, you need time to throw because they're not going to get open quick. I thought a good win. Miami's defense played so much better. And last week, the offense has that crazy high ceiling. So if they get both those two together, they'll be hard to beat. I'd be worried if I was a Patriots fan about how bad the offense could be throughout the season.
There we are. On to the first of many close games that we'll whistle through now. This one went to overtime. It's the Chargers losing to the Tennessee Titans 24-27 in overtime. And it's another game where Brandon Staley was outcoached and the Chargers sucked situationally, wasn't it, Liam?
Yeah, it was. To be fair, Vrabel is one of my favourite coaches in the NFL. So on our preview podcast, I said, look, they could win this game on coaching alone. Like, he is a good coach. He is a better defensive coach, no matter what people think about Brandon Staley, than Brandon Staley is. That is how good Vrabel is on both sides of the ball. But yeah, you're right. They were outcoached. The defense it was again for the Chargers. I think I wrote down they're like second worst in defensive success rate. They're the first team in NFL history to score 50-plus points, have 0 turnovers, and lose both their first 2 games. They've got the worst third down success rate in the NFL in the last 4 years. Wow. And this is from a head coach that is a defensive coach.
And also he doesn't want to give up a big play, but all we see is him give up big plays.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, he wants to kind of make you dink and dunk. Okay, great. They've had a holding call or they've had a fumble and now we get the ball back. But yeah, you're right. Every time you watch it, it's like 2nd and 6. All of a sudden, it's 1st down and 10 every single time. It feels like against the defense. And this is against Ryan Tannehill, by the way, who was bad last week against the Saints. He finished
really bad.
20 for 24, 256 yards and a touchdown. He ran one in, which was kind of old school Tannehill, which was quite cool to see. And he had two 40-yard plus passes, one to I think Chris Moore and the other one to Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
And I just watched thinking like, yeah, even with Derwin James in there, I'm just like, my God, like great player, but like I don't know if it was him or the defense, but he had two whole shots over the middle of his head converted for 20-yard gains, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't the defense that this was supposed to built to be. Obviously, Herbert will take a lot of stick, have the chance to win the ball again in overtime.
Yeah,
like
from me
especially.
Week. That's my thing.
Yeah, that's your thing. I obviously don't listen to bias. But yeah, I picked Tennessee to win the division, and I thought this was the sort of team we'd get. I think they were terrible against the Saints last week. I think this is much more that the Titans will see. And it goes to show you that if you just defend the run against Staley and you coach well and your offense is good enough, you'll have a chance to win every game, no matter how good Herbert is, because they're just not good enough from a defensive or, like you said, from a coaching perspective. They didn't do any fourth down issues yesterday, but there were some times where it was like 2nd and 1 and they passed like 3 times in a row. And I'm like, sometimes just give Herbert a rest. Let them have a 1-yard run just so he doesn't have to throw it 4 times in a row or constantly over and over again. So, yeah, bad loss for the Chargers. They're 0-2. We probably don't know if we'll talk about it as the podcast goes, but one of these 0-2 teams is going to have to pull something out of the bag, or else the AFC playoffs are going to look a lot more different than we think. But for me, this was Staley and the defense that lost the game. And the Titans' defense was really good. Like that front, that's the reason why they're a good team on defense. And I thought they bossed the Chargers' offensive line all game.
Yeah, we saw it in New Orleans as well last week. He kept them in the game even when Tannehill was rubbish.
Yeah, he was bad.
Yeah. So I think with the Chargers as well, I think I'm a little bit underwhelmed by the offense from Kellen Moore as well. It just looks a bit the same. Like obviously they didn't have Eckler yesterday. They had Eckler. They ran the ball a lot, which we saw obviously in Dallas as well against Miami. But yeah, it just looks all a bit the same. So I don't know what's going to happen in LA. I think I can see Staley being 5 mid-season, to be honest with you. The way it's going now, because it's still they're still exactly in the same spot they were last year. It feels like they're 0-2, and there's 2 games that you feel like you could have won as well. They're in both of them. You know, like that's 2 1-score games you've lost that you've done. I just don't. I don't see this being a very good season for the Chargers unless something changes over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be a really good head coach, but we're all wrong. We're all wrong, aren't we, about certain things? I'm definitely wrong about that. I just don't think he's a good head coach. Said first year I need more of our players. Second year got all of his players. Said third year, okay, we weren't quite good enough, but now we have continuity. The scheme will be good. I know it's only 2 games, but we can't react to any more than 2 games because we've only seen the 2 games, and he was I just think he was thoroughly outcoached. I think he's second favorite as well in America now for the odds for first coach fired behind Matt Eberflus. So
his Bears team have been terrible too.
So, he could easily be fired, especially when you spend that much money and you've got a good team. I will just say my last point on this: go watch just for anyone listening, go watch Justin Herbert's first touchdown throw, followed by the 2-point conversion, because it was
that the one where he was on the back foot? He was on the back foot against Keenan Allen. Yeah, that was so good, man.
Yeah, and he got smashed in the face as he threw it. And then all of a sudden they go for 2, which loads of people are going to hate, but I loved it. And then they throw it past the right tackle. And I was like, okay, sweet. I thought they were going to win the game then. They're up 11. And then, disaster hit. And Big Tannehill and Derrick Henry come through and win the game.
On to another game that went to overtime. This one was yet another shootout between Seattle and Detroit. It was ended by a Tyler Lockett walk-off overtime TD. And Seattle looked a lot better offensively than they did last week, for sure. The Lions carried on from where they were against the Chiefs as well. They're both teams that are great offensively. Defensively, we'll say, less so, but this just feels like a typical Seahawks Lions game from last year. Like last year, with exactly the same thing, but this is what we expected both teams to look like this year. Maybe Seattle, not allowing 31 points, but. Yeah, get right game for Seattle. Gino looked great as well. Actually, I thought Gino looked really good last night. What are your thoughts on this game? Because it was back and forth. Goff's got 3 picks in there, and Tyler Lockett. He's always been like that. Made 2 big plays down the stretch.
Yeah, it's game-winning TD as well, and a cool celebration after the game. Yeah, this was just a fun game, very similar to last year's game when these two teams played. I was surprised that the Seahawks defense did look this bad. Well, 2 weeks in a row, to be honest.
Yeah,
I know,
that's the thing. Yeah.
yeah, I spoke about it on our podcast, and talk about him later, but how amazing Stafford played. But this week, it's a different team, different quarterback, different system, and the results are very much the same. So I am a bit worried about maybe that Seahawks defense that a lot of us were high on before the season is proved to be pretty poor. But yeah, a really fun game. I thought Goff looks pretty good. Hasn't thrown a pick in a long, long time. Throws the pick, and then I would say after that, did not look as good as he did.
His streak ended, and it was like, what was it, fourth longest all time or something like that?
Yeah, I can't remember how many snaps it was now. It was at least 350 snaps.
Yeah.
They looked really skittish after that. Obviously, Montgomery goes out. The run game really didn't look great. But they throw it, get back into the game. The funniest play of the day for me, or one of the funniest, was the one where obviously Pete Carroll said, "Do not let the clock stop." So Gino scrambles right. It's third down. He's about to get hit, and he's like, "Okay, I've been told I can't let the clock stop, so I have to just take an absolute beasting of a sack," and he got sacked. Obviously, Lions come down, scored I think it was a field goal, and then Seahawks come out and win the game. But yeah, really fun game. I don't know what it tells us about the two teams, because I think Seattle's defense was worse than we thought. Lions defense was back to its old tricks after a good week one performance. Lions offense was better than week one. Seattle's offense was better than week one. So I almost feel like these two teams are such a similar level that they can be fighting it out for a playoff spot towards the end of the year. But yeah, fun game.
Last year. The Lions won to put the Seahawks in the playoffs. So yeah,
we just need week 3 for me, I think, and week 4 to see which one of what these two teams are, because it's fun to watch, but it was a little bit all over the place. Shout out to Lions fans though, because I don't know if you listened or if you watch it or have headphones in or whatever, but the atmosphere was nuts in Detroit. It was one of the loudest I've heard on coming through the TV. But yeah, fun game. We'll see what these two teams are, because they both want to get in the playoffs. They're win now teams, aren't they?
Yes, for sure. Not entirely sure what they do with the quarterback, but they have rest of the roster for sure is win now. On to a team that, well, I don't know what to think about the Giants at the minute, to be honest with you. Honestly, and this is my point. Like, if you would have told me 7 days ago that the Giants would be 20 down to the Cardinals at half time, having lost 40-0. Right, not scoring a point in 6 quarters of football. In the first game to the Cowboys, I would have thought you would. I thought the Giants would regress this year. They're not as talented as the rest of the NFC, and they have a very hard schedule this year. But yeah, and also the Cardinals have very much impressed me. But this game was just a mess, and the Giants obviously got the win in the end. Scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to win 31-28. Big plays from Daniel Jones, Jalen Hyatt, Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, and Isaiah Hodgins. Obviously, the overarching thing about this game is Saquon Barkley's injury. He got taken out of what looks like an ankle sprain, with about a minute left to go in the game. Obviously, that's the main talking point I say out of this game. But God, I don't know what to think about the Giants and the Cardinals. Man, they play hard, and Josh Dobbs had a game yesterday.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs played well. Had that big run. I come out before it was big run. Offensive
2
line
rushing
going
touchdowns,
crazy. Yeah, offensive line was going crazy with him, and it was cool. James Conner ran the ball pretty well in the first half. Second half, Giants decided to barely rush the passer and just say, "Look, stop the run." He's not a good enough quarterback to drop back and throw it, which I thought was good from Wink. But in terms of Giants, I wrote down in my notes like 60-0 start. 60-0 start as I was watching the game, and just sat there laughing. And so you told me before which game we were kind of both taking more notes on, and this was one of my games, and I was prepared to come in here and just slate Daniel Jones for the whole time. Can't quite do it yet, maybe on my next appearance, because he did actually play well in the third quarter. He ran the ball well. I think he had like 7 completions in a row. A lot of them were on boot actions. A lot of them were against man coverage. So played quite well. But the 6 quarters before that, I know the Cowboys are a good defense, but yeah, he was awful. And I still think the contract was terrible. Is it as bad as maybe it could look in a few weeks? We'll see. But I don't know really what to make of the Giants. The defense does not. We all thought they'd take a step back because the offense is kind of built on a house of cards, it felt like. But everyone thought the defense would take a step forward. They got a good front, drafted obviously in the secondary. They got better linebacker players. I wouldn't say good, but better. Good safeties. But it's just typical Wink. Like, one good year on defense, and this year it's been an absolute disaster because they could not stop the run for love and money in the first half yesterday. So yeah, their fans will be glad to win because you can't go 0-2 if Cardinals are on your schedule. But yeah, I'm similar to you. I thought they were going to take some regression. Maybe that's even worse than I thought. It could be even less wins than I originally picked them for, because I just don't think they look like a good team. And the offense and defense looks worse than I think most of us thought.
On to a game that you had, I'm sure you had your eyes on yesterday. It's the Chiefs at the Jags. As another slow start, wasn't it? A few turnovers for the Chiefs, but they finally got there, and their defense played very well yesterday. I have to say it, to get the first win of the year.
Yeah, I do not want Patrick Mahomes' team to be a defense first team. This is a situation that I'm not prepared for. But yeah, defense wins the game. Chris Jones came back first game since the holdout, and then me and you spoke about this on the preview pod about how important he'd be, and maybe would he sit 8 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever it would be. But yeah, he was crazy good yesterday. He had 36% pass rush win rate, which is the highest for any position, including Micah Parsons, that everyone thinks is like. Chris Jones only played one game, but yeah, even higher than Micah Parsons, which is absolutely crazy. And the defense is top 3 in success rate and has combined. So the Jags, obviously, week 2, Lions week 1, they're favourites for their divisions, but quite a margin. They've had 23 combined points on offense against the Chiefs. If you take away the pick 6 that obviously was on Kadarius Toney. And I just thought the defense was great. It's still one of the youngest units in the league, second youngest defense in the entire NFL. But they needed to play well because the offense was awful. I counted they had 9 second and 20s in the game.
Wow.
Which was from turnovers, it was from flags, it was from fumbles, which they recovered themselves. It was from 2 -4 runs. It was just, the offense was really, really bad. The offense isn't normally like that. So as a neutral or a Chiefs fan that wants this team to be fun, you'll say they'll turn that around because that's just what Andy Reid does. But yeah, they need to because it was bad. And from a Jags perspective, defense looks pretty good. Secondary looks good, better than it did. And last week it looked good as well in the second half. So I think that's a positive for them. But one thing I've heard on every preview pod all year was Jags' offensive line is not great. And if you watch this game, you just can't watch it and think that they're a team that are probably 2 or 3 offensive linemen short to be a good team, because whether it was Chris Jones, whether it was George Karlaftis, whether it was FAU, they were just killing Trevor Lawrence. And I think that's what impacted the offense as much as probably the Chiefs' defense being good. But yeah, what do you think about it from an AFC perspective? Chiefs are obviously a rival for playoffs and whatever. You think the offense will come good? Obviously, it's been number 1 in the NFL every year Mahomes has played, and now it's like number 20.
Well, I don't know. It's like, I mean, I always just expect, especially, when you needed to score yesterday, Mahomes, Kelsey, 3rd down, red zone touchdown. That happened yesterday. Yeah, that looked like it always does. But you didn't really have the drops that you had last time. I mean, you had a few, but I swear, I feel like you're gonna get there. The Jags defense is really good, and that's I said that I said all year I've been saying I really want to see what the Jags defense is like, because at the end of last year they were really good. And yeah, the offensive line, I think they were out Brandon Scherf and obviously Cam Robinson yesterday as well, so there's 2 big misses. But
Scherf played.
Did he play? I thought he was questionable, but
yeah, he played. Chris Jones got a sack on him.
Okay. But
Chris Jones did. But yeah, he didn't look healthy. Obviously, left tackle was out, but I think the offense for Chiefs should get better.
You'll get there eventually. You had it last year, didn't you? You had it last year. You hit groove mid-season. It wasn't all rosy like it was at the very start of the year. Like, obviously, you had the game week 1, but it wasn't. It took time last year, and it might take more time this year. But I think you'll get there. Just need. I mean, you just need. I think. Do you think Kelsey's fully healthy, or that might be a thing as well? Right?
No, he wasn't fully healthy this week. You could tell he was like, I gave it 100%, but hopefully next week I'll be able to give a little bit more. He played quite a few snaps, but he was like a decoy on a lot just to get out there and to run a route. So yeah, I think that'll make a difference. Obviously, the offensive line played good, but then just got flags. Some of that was just the lead just picking on Jawan Taylor. It was crazy because the other team's right tackle was lining up the same place and they were only flagging one, and you're just there like, this is like a Jawan Taylor rule almost because of how much it was focused on last week. But yeah, I hope the offense gets good. They've got the Bears, Jets, and Vikings next 3 games. Obviously, that probably is Zach Wilson-led Jets. So even though they've got a good defense, they're 3 games that you think, okay, right, that's
Bears
our 3
defense,
games.
you should get points on.
Yeah, and Vikings, yeah. So you'd think that those 3 games are the games to kind of get you right. And obviously, a lot of these are young receivers that just need to play a lot of snaps. But yeah, if we could have a game without 10 flags on offense and 3 turnovers, that would be great. But to beat a playoff team in the Jags when you have 3 turnovers, 12 flags, and hardly convert on third down, the margin of error is pretty big for the Chiefs. But I'd like to see them play better. And Calvin Ridley as well took a bit of a knock on his knee in the end zone in the second half. So that's one to watch for next week for any fantasy football players because, he didn't look right after that. So hopefully he's healthy because he's a great player. He had a sick catch as well on third down in this game.
Yeah. On to someone who's clearly not healthy. It's Joe Burrow and the Bengals. The Ravens aren't who they beat. Who beat the Bengals aren't healthy either. The banged up Ravens took the lead of the AFC North to bury the Bengals with 0-2 record, not only in the division but also obviously in the league as well. The Bengals offense carried on a slow start like it was last year. Baltimore looked better this week. I thought Lamar had one of the best games I've seen him have in a while. Actually, it was very. The Bengals' only touchdown in the first half was the Charlie Jones 81-yard return touchdown, which says it already. I think Burrow had 35 yards, and he got better as the game went on. Obviously, he found T. Higgins for a couple of touchdowns, and they started to get flow throughout the game. But the thing that decided this game actually was the Burrow interception to Geno Stone, who replaced Marcus Williams at safety. Then complete the very next throw after the pick to Zay Flowers, who is by far the most reliable player other than Mark Andrews, of course, on the offense, and he looks to be a real player. It's just, and hopefully he can stay healthy unlike the other receivers. 52 yards. A few plays later, he gave it to Mark Andrews, who dived over the pylon for 20-10, to put out 20-10, and Nelson Aguilar was in there as well for the Ravens. Baltimore got the first downs they needed as well to stop a late Burrow comeback. But I think the Ravens have impressed me this week. Last week I wasn't as impressed but this week they really impressed me. And what are your thoughts on the Bengals? How they're moving at the minute, especially offensively?
Look, any chance I can get to see the Bengals lose as someone who is not a fan of this team, shout out to Adam who from the Full10Yards will be listening to this. I'll be happy. But yeah, he's not healthy. Is point one. In terms of Joe Burrow, obviously his calves. He actually hurt it again in this game, didn't he? So
yeah, I saw
he didn't look good all game. So I got a couple of friends that were like, "Oh, he must have been injured all game." I was like, "Okay, well maybe," but he himself said, "I only got hurt on like second to last play of the game," and then he could barely walk not barely walk, but was walking with a big limp off the field. So that obviously has an impact. I think the offensive line looks terrible. Which I think is a real worry, especially when you've got someone who can't move. Because normally he's pretty good at that kind of Tom Brady level pocket movement. He's not Josh Allen for speed, but he'll step up and make someone miss, and then he's got a wide open throw. But when he can't move, the offensive line has to be perfect. And unfortunately, I didn't feel like they were very good. And I was listening to a couple of pods. I need to go back and watch the game. Because obviously it was on the same time as my game. I haven't watched it in full yet. But a lot of people saying the Bengals defense as well wasn't great. I've watched all the throws from Lamar because I do some QB kind of scouting, writing. And that's one of the best games, at least passing, that he's ever had. So maybe it's just him. But the Bengals defense definitely hasn't quite kind of taken that next step yet. Because they're young and there's loads of new players on it. It's a very different team to last year. And that'll take time. But yeah, the worry for them is Burrow, isn't it? Because if they go 0-3, you can clip this for the future, but they just probably won't make the playoffs because the percent chances are so slim when they've got to play the schedule they've got down the stretch and you're in a tough division where you're going to play some tough teams nearly every other week. So if they go 0-3, it's very difficult. And obviously there's talk, will Joe Burrow play next week? So for me, if I was a Bengals fan, I'd say injured, so young kind of defense, new defense, they'll be fine. But you just don't want to be 0-3 because even if you're fine and you win loads of games down the stretch, you still might finish with 10 wins and finish 8th in the AFC. So, what do you think? Do you think they will play him? Obviously, it's a Super Bowl rematch next week against the Rams. Do they go him and just say, we have to win this game? Or do they rest him, think they might win anyway, and then at least he's healthy for the week 4 onwards?
I don't think they win without him, though. Because
I agree,
their backup QB situation is bad. And also, the Rams have been really good this year. From what I expected them to be, so I don't see how that. I honestly I don't know. I think do they blow it up like just finish the season, just bench Burrow the whole year? But then saying that what happens to your receivers because they're contracts. That's the next.
They
so
definitely won't. They won't blow it up. Definitely
no.
not.
But it's just obviously not. But just maybe bench Burrow for the season. I don't know. It's just like it's weird. And if he's unhealthy, like I don't. It's just like, what do you do? Do you rest him and do they just miss a year? That's the thing. It's like now is I said in the podcast, the predictions on this is the year they have to win the Super Bowl because after this it's gonna this is the best roster they're gonna have, which is mental because again he gets beat up on the regular. But now he's been paid. This is the best roster they're gonna have. Unless he just takes, pay cut after pay cut after pay cut, restructure after restructure, like they can't really get any better than this. So it's an interesting. I honestly don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think Zach Taylor got a lot of stick early on in his reign, and then obviously turned things around. And I've got a couple of mates actually from America that are Bengals fans, and saw on their Twitter, and it is getting back to that like, Zach Taylor, like, not is he the right guy? Because I think they've realised now that maybe they were wrong about him to start with, and I was wrong because I thought he would be fired back in the day. But the offense he's not adapting to an injured QB. Do you know what I mean? He's not changing the way they play. It's a very similar style of play, and I just think they need to kind of look at that for next week. But yeah, I agree with you. They probably don't win if he doesn't play. So we spoke about this in the Full 10 Yards group earlier, and I just think they'll force him to play. And if they win by like a field goal, great. They're 1-2, and their season can start. But if they go 0-3 and he plays and he gets worse, then they're going to be in trouble because it's a tough division. But yeah, we'll see. I had the Ravens winning the division, so I feel quite good. Did you? Were you on the Bengals side, or were you? I
had the Ravens fourth in the division.
Who did you have winning it? Bengals.
I had the Bengals winning it. Then I had Pittsburgh, then the Browns. Yeah, I was really hard on the Steelers. Yeah, no. So tonight it may look better. We don't know, but I just said that everyone in the Ravens are going to get injured, which most of them have been injured. We saw Odell got injured. A lot of the defensive players have been injured. Like that's the only thing that worries me. The Ravens, the injuries. But Lamar looked great yesterday.
Yeah, he did, definitely.
On to this game, which again was way more competitive than you thought it'd be. It's the Rams losing 23-30 to the Niners. And I mean, look, Deebo Samuel looked like his 2021 self. The Niners are so good. The Rams are well coached, which you can take away from this game too. Stafford, he's been asked to throw it 50 times coming off his shoulder, and off his injury and everything, which is just mental. But there's the whole thing with Cam Akers and being traded potentially. I thought Kyron Williams looked really good yesterday, actually. But yeah, you watch this game, Liam. Just sort of, if you could start, what would you say about this Rams Niners game? Because look, Puka Nacua, by the way, let's have a player. He got 15 catches yesterday, which is a rookie record.
Yeah, I know. But he's had a record for 2 games as well, like 20 odd receptions in 2 games. Finished this game 15 for 147, which is crazy. I kind of agree with what you said. That my takeaway is probably these are 2 very well coached teams. I think McVay struggled a bit last year mentally, with losing. I think someone who's not lost a lot in his career, but you can tell they've come out fresh this year because even Raheem Morris as well on the defensive end. The Niners also got a brand new defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes, and I just looked at the game being like, these are 2 very well coached teams that in the NFC, regardless of if they play as well as their opponent or not, their coaches will get them to win games because they just do things right. The offenses look even better than they did last year. Like you said, Deebo's in the backfield again, played really well. Brandon Ayuk got a knock early in the game. I think that probably affected him in the offense a little bit, and maybe they'd be a bit more explosive if he was there. But as someone who's a bit of a Matt Stafford stan, I know they lost this game, so this should be all about the 49ers because they won. They're going to be up there in the NFC. Didn't look as good as last week, but looked really good. Stafford is absolutely balling. He threw 2 interceptions, and people will say, typical Stafford, but he is having to drop back, throw it all the time. He is, regardless of how well he's playing, he is throwing to Puka Nacua.
Yeah, he's looking quite good. Like this is probably the best he's looked. I'd probably say last week he looked probably the best he's looked in the Rams in general. Like obviously the Super Bowl year he got banged up and everything like in there as well. But honestly, last week he was really good, and this week again he's been asked to throw it 50 times, but he looked even so like at the start of the game he looked really good, and the Rams are they had a lead at one point in this game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he's going against what, top 3 defense, top 1, top 2. Everyone's somewhere in that top 3 or 4. And Yeah, and he played as good as he did. One of the interceptions was his fault. The other one was a little bit unlucky. But yeah, they did well. They're 1-1. We'll see what happens next week with Joe Burrow, but they could easily be 2-1 after a pretty hard schedule. Like Seahawks, 49ers, Bengals before the season, you say that's 0-3 for the Rams. And if they come out of that 2-1, it's a great start. But yeah, 49ers just get the win done. I thought Brock didn't look as good as he usually does, or as they usually make him. He did miss some throws in this game.
There's one to Debo. He overthrew him by so much. There's one to Debo that would have been a walking touchdown.
Yeah, he hit Kittle as well, like on his feet on a third down. It's like Kittle's not playing great. Well, not playing great, but he's not getting a lot of looks. And you think, okay, third down look, they're giving him one, and you chuck it at his feet, and you're like, not great. But the rest of the team got the win, and I want to shout out Fred Warner because I thought even though Stafford played well, Fred Warner on defense was incredible.
He's so good.
Sack. Yeah, he had a sack. He had 2 pass breakups that were just him fake blitzing and then sprinting back to the hole to play 3 safety look and him dropping in as the third. Even though he's a linebacker, that's how good he can play like third safety on third down. And he had like 9 tackles, I think, in the run game. So yeah, he was great. This is a really fun game, actually. People should go back and watch this because these are 2 good teams. And I think they could both make the playoffs. Like the Rams need a bit of luck. Like they need these young receivers to carry this on, which is going to be hard. But if they get cut back in week 5 and they somehow win next week, then they're in a good position. But it is weird how Cam Akers is like getting traded every 3 months and then he's back in the team. So if I was them, I would kind of sort that out. But my only worry if I was a Rams fan would be they win a couple of games and say, oh, come on then, let's trade for Jonathan Taylor. Let's go out and try and win a Super Bowl. And they go back to old Rams. But yeah, we'll see. But
they've
yeah,
got a first-round pick this year. They have the resources to do it now. So
and the year after, which is a miracle for them. And yeah, I know we haven't mentioned him as well, but CMC looked great.
So good.
The question with him is, will he stay healthy? That'll be the question every week. But there's just no point talking about it because when he is healthy, he's incredible and he played really well this game. But yeah, good win.
Yeah, for sure. Another good win occurred for the Buffalo Bills. They dominated the Raiders 38-10, and Josh Allen was a star for sure as the Raiders returned to Vegas empty-handed. Allen was 31-37 for 274 yards and 3 TDs. And my big takeaway from this game is, have Buffalo found a run game? Because if so, they could be very dangerous. Because James Cook, really good yesterday, 123 yards, averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Latavius Murray and Damian Harris had carries as well, both getting touchdowns. If Buffalo have found a run game, then that could be dangerous because that's their one thing they can't control the clock whatsoever.
Yeah, Cook looks pretty good. I didn't think he looked great either in week 1, so it's a nice bounce back for him. They were running it a bit more with 3 wide receivers, which I thought was good because they led the league in 2 tight ends. I think they got a little bit too kind of like Kincaid. We're going to play like the Chiefs did last year, 2 tight ends all the time, 3 tight ends. And it didn't quite work. This week they dragged it down a bit and they ran it from 3 wide receivers. That's a lot. And yeah, like you said, Cook looks really good, looks explosive. He seems better on those outside runs rather than he does kind of just going through the middle, which I think hopefully they can use that because Latavius Murray is good enough to do the old 1 or 2 yard third and 1 runs without you having to use Josh Allen. But yeah, run game looked good. Could they lend some of that run game to the Raiders though, please? Because the Raiders had 9. Josh Jacobs had 9 carries for minus 2 yards.
Yeah. I did with fantasy this week. Luckily, he got the receiving TD and his 50 receiving yards, but so it wasn't that bad. So I think it's still be like about 11 points or something like that. Which if you see 9 carries and minus 2 yards, you're like, wow. But
that's Josh Jacobs though. He's boom and bust. He has 1 good year, 1 bad year. Did the same in college last year.
It wasn't great against Denver last week either. Normally he runs over Denver, but he didn't last week.
No, he didn't. Some of that's training camp, people would think, and probably agree with them a little bit, but he's been like this his whole career. Very boom or bust, and he wasn't good. But yeah, Buffalo Bills played well. Josh Allen played well. I thought Stephon Diggs looked really, really good as well. Matt Milano had a sick Moss-like interception over... I can't remember who it was.
It was on the helmet, wasn't it? It was great.
Yeah, was that Josh Jacobs, actually? I can't remember if that was Josh Jacobs.
No, I think it was Zamir White. I think it was running back.
What it was.
Yeah, but it was a very high check down from Garoppolo, and just went up and went to go get it. It was great.
But this is the Raiders I thought we'd see. To be honest,
yes.
I do think Josh Allen looked great. I think he's going to have games like he did against the Jets. That's why he isn't as good as, for me, Burrow, Herbert, and Mahomes, because those games where he just has 3 interceptions out of nowhere. But I think week to week he'll still be very, very good. But I think the run game will need to see it again because I do think the Raiders are pretty poor up front. The secondary's not great. The linebackers aren't great. And I thought the offense was back to how I thought it would look. But if I'm a Bills fan, I'm saying our corners and safeties looked back to how we thought they'd look. Even against some good weapons. I know Devontae Adams left the game with a concussion, but he played majority of the game. So, yeah, good win for Buffalo. I think, we'll see what the Raiders are like because I thought people got a little bit ahead of themselves last week just because they beat the Broncos. And we'll see. And if Devontae Adams is missing, I'd be worried for Jimmy G because I don't think Jimmy G was very good in this game at all.
No, not at all. Especially when they, took away the run game as well. It got worse and worse and worse. For sure. Onto a run game that was very good from the quarterback as well. That's the next game. We'll go on to actually the Dallas run game was really good as well. They shout it out, which I think was really surprising. Actually, they don't, they give it to Deuce Vaughn and Turpin, but the Dallas very competitive game at the start, but as the pressure increased, the Jets and Zach Wilson fell away. The Cowboys won 30-10 against the Jets. And the Dallas' defense was the star of the show game, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're so good. This is why I picked them to be in the Super Bowl, mainly because of the defense. And I actually do like Dak. We'll talk about the offense in a minute because I thought Dak played really well against a very good defense. But defense was good. They did well on nearly all the third downs. I thought the secondary looked great. There was some moments against the Giants where it was just pass rush. But this week, they caught 2 interceptions in zone coverage. That's how nailed they were in terms of where are we going? Who are we guarding? What position of the field have I got? And I think Malik Hooker was one of them. On zone coverage is quite hard to do against an offense like this that the Jets are probably going to run it more than they pass it. The defense looked great. Going back to Dak, I think he was 31 for 38, 255 yards and a touchdown. The yards aren't this 400-yard game, but it's that efficiency. It's doing it on third down, and it's against a great defense. The offensive line did really well against these pass rushers. And if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd be feeling pretty good. I know it's against Zach Wilson, but you at least wanted your offense to look good because they didn't need to do anything against the Giants last week, and I thought the offense looked good. And CeeDee Lamb, shout out, he's probably my performance of the week. 11 catches, 143 yards. I know Sauce Gardner says he didn't catch a ball on him, but when you watch the tape, that's not true. He caught plenty of balls on Sauce Gardner. Loads of third downs. He had 2 times in a row, actually, where he either held or false started on him, and then he got the third down converted for 25-plus yards on his own. That was the game of his career. All I'd say for the Cowboys is they need to get Pollard's kind of run efficiency up. Not a big back. Running him a lot back-to-back, so first down run, second down run. That's old Zeke style runs. That's not Pollard. I think if they can fix that side of their game, they could be the best team in the NFC. And from the Jets' perspective, I just don't know what you could expect. So if you give Breece Hall 4 touches,
I know,
you're not going to win the game. They said, we were down, so we had to throw it. It's like, you kind of have to throw it. But with this defense, you're one of the only teams in the league where I'd say, okay, we have to throw it in the fourth quarter. We don't need to throw it all game. And this is from someone who cares about analytics, who says you shouldn't run the ball that much. But Breece Hall needs more touches than 4.
For sure. Especially with how Dalvin Cook looked last week as well. Like Dalvin Cook was doing great last week, and obviously he fumbled as well yesterday. So
and he did that last year as well, 4 or 5 times.
He led the league in fumbles.
Something that's in his game. What do you think about Wilson? Obviously, ran the ball pretty well. They let him pass the ball more, so there's some confidence there. Is he going to be the starting QB? Flash forward, I don't know, 4 weeks. We're in week 6, or are they going to have to make a move?
Honestly, I thought he he looked good at the start, then got worse as the game went on. Obviously through the picks and stuff, but last week he really impressed me. Like that drive to throw, and then when he went the drive to take the lead and the Garrett Wilson one-handed catch last week, that really impressed me. That drive last week. This week again, I didn't watch enough, but from what I saw, I was like, okay. It just looks like a team with a guy who's only had 1 week as a starter, taking starting reps. That's what it looks like, but. We'll see. And also, they played against one of the best defenses. It's probably the best defense in the league as well. So I can't really take anything away from that as well. But with the Jets' schedule, you'll be playing all the best defenses. That is the only problem.
They got Patriots next as well, and Zach Wilson's notoriously bad against the Patriots. But I just think start the game better, run the ball better, and if your defense is barely getting any pressure on the QB, and you're the Jets, it's just a disastrous game because you're built on that front, aren't you? They've got like 7 or 8 pass rushers that most of us would love to have on our team. So yeah, a bit of a disaster, but yeah, good win for the Cowboys. I think they've got Arizona next week, so they're going to be 3-0, and probably defense is going to be the highest scoring fantasy defense in history again. But yeah, Parsons is on his way to Defensive Player of the Year for sure.
Yeah, I'm really impressed, and again, I've got him in about 3 of my leagues as well, so I really don't mind it if the defense plays well at all. On to the game that I teased just before. It is the Colts beating the Texans, and this one was a weird one because Anthony Richardson really impressed again. He started again in the battle versus fellow rookie C.J. Stroud, who I also liked towards the end of the game too. But unfortunately, he did not finish the game. His first drive went 5 or 6 for 50 yards and scored an 18-yard scramble TD to the right. And then Indianapolis got the ball back after Stroud was strip sacked on 3rd and 5. And then on the 2 plays later, Richardson kept the ball again and went in for a 15-yard rush TD to his left this time. An electric start, 14-0. And from there, the Colts won away the game really. And just from there, the thing you can really say about it is Richardson got taken out for concussion. At the end of the first quarter, never came back, and the helmet he used is the same one that they've got Tua wearing now, the same one that Derek Carr is wearing as well. It's apparently the most concussion-proof helmet in the league, and he's got a concussion, second game, so that we'll see. Well, but obviously with the way he runs as well, that's more, you're more sustained to a concussion if you run like a running back. But both QBs impressed me, and from what I saw, Richardson more so, but I like Stroud. What are your thoughts on this game? And the Colts defense looks good as well. Did last week,
definitely,
I thought, too.
Yeah, it did look good last week as well. Pass rush looks pretty good for the Colts overall as well, against a good offensive line. I think Tunsil was inactive in this game, but still a good line compared to some in the NFL, and they got good pressure all day. But I think he didn't finish the game. This game was definitely about the 2 rookies. Like, they were so good in the first half. I thought both of them were really good. A lot of people talking about Richardson, like you said, but I thought Stroud was really good.
I really do.
Yeah, he's my QB1 in the draft as well, so I'm a little bit biased, but I thought he looked really good. And his receivers aren't. I know Richardson's aren't great, but a lot of the damage he's doing is in the run game and in the play action game, where Stroud's having to drop back and pass it time and time again.
He's in the right system for him as well. Like that sort of San Francisco system is the system for him with his skill sets, and obviously he's very accurate. Like that's what he's in the perfect fit. Obviously, Richardson is as well with Shane Steichen, who's, the Eagles don't look very good without Shane Steichen now. So and obviously Richardson, we didn't expect him to come into the league and have this success, straight away. Obviously, they'll get tape, and we'll see how he fares throughout the year. We saw this with Lamar as well, obviously, in his first year. But I'm very impressed by both these guys. Very impressed.
Yeah, definitely. Just got to hope that Richardson, obviously, is short-term concussion. He'll probably miss next week. I doubt he's going to play next week, but we need him to be back because A, he's fun, and B, he needs to just keep getting starts. That's the one thing for him. He hasn't played a lot of football, so he needs to play. No. And Stroud, it's just a case of keep playing well. They need to improve the defense, keep getting young talent, and then just get to a draft and draft a receiver. Draft a tight end, draft another receiver, and they just need a little bit of help. But yeah, I thought it was a fun game, looked good, and obviously Jonathan Taylor's due to come back to this Colts team. I had the Texans finishing above the Colts, and actually the Colts have impressed me a lot in week 1 and week 2. I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately, anymore. It feels like Texans will be rock bottom again, but we'll see. This was a fun game, good rewatch as well, and both quarterbacks look good for 2 starts.
And we'll finish off with the worst game of the week, the Bears at the Bucks. The Bucks go to 2-0, which is did not think would happen when I was predicting the league for sure. This one was back and forth throughout. The Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans connection is cooking. Baker loves a guy who goes up and gets it. Mike Evans obviously is a great guy to do that. We saw that in the game today, yesterday with his big touchdown. And then the Bears are 17-20 down, and Justin Fields inside the 5, 2-minute drill to win the game, and he threw a pick 6 to Shaq Barrett to win Tampa Bay the game. Now, I like Justin Fields, but yesterday wasn't one of his good days.
Yeah, I like Justin Fields as well, but both first 2 games have not been Justin Fields' days. So
he needs to run it more.
He does need to run it more.
He needs to run it more. That's his superpower. He's so good.
They only had one designed run in this game.
Yeah.
I know he scrambles, but they're not running the ball at all. in terms of like design runs, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, he's throwing the lowest percent of his passes past the sticks in the NFL. So only 22% of his passes go past the line of scrimmage at the moment. And he leads the league in sack rate of 11.7%. So compared to average, that's like 6.5% more. So yeah, he doesn't look good. The offense doesn't look good. He actually looks worse. I spoke about this on our podcast last week, but he actually looks worse at reading where the pressure's coming from than he did last year. So I think the offense is DJ Moore played okay, and they had like 2 big plays, which made Fields' yardage look better than his actual performance. But it's not just him. The whole team looks poor. I think the offensive line looks bad. We all know the defensive line was the worst in the league. And yeah, they're not getting hardly any pressure. They've got a young secondary that play well sometimes, and then obviously have coverage busts at others just because they're young and inexperienced. But yeah, the whole team looks pretty poor. And in terms of the Bucs, 2-0, like for them, I know the Falcons are also 2-0, but they're obviously going to be joint leading the division, which is impressive. And Mike Evans leads the league in target share as well from a fantasy football perspective and finished with 171 yards in this game, which was fun. Yeah. And Baker had like 317 yards, 1 TD, no sacks, and no interceptions. So
honestly, he looks so good. When he's not pressured, Baker's like really good, I think. That's the problem.
Yeah.
When the year in Cleveland that he had success, obviously they had one of the best offensive lines in the league that year, and they won the playoff game against Pittsburgh, and then obviously the next year, But I'm a big Baker fan. I always have been, and I said I did the stuff for the Bucs in the guide, and I said this is Baker's year to show that, because otherwise if he can't do anything this year, then he's done as a starter.
Yeah. I'd say we need to see a bit more. Vikings defense, Bears defense, pretty bad. But I'm not a Baker fan, but he's definitely impressed me. And what I was going to mention was it links very well to the offensive line. Obviously, they've got moved the right tackle to left tackle in Wirfs. Drafted a 3rd, 4th round in Cody Mock to go and play guard. New center because Ryan Jensen's probably going to retire. And I think the offensive line, I know again against 2 bad pass rushes, but better than I thought. And like you said, when Baker has time to throw, he's much better than when he has people coming at him. So it's been impressive. And I thought one thing to mention about this game, Todd Bowles, not a great head coach for me, but he's a great DC, and he decided just to blitz the life actually out of Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields. And as a neutral, it's just fun to watch because it's either a big play or it is just the quarterback getting absolute nailed time and time again. So, they look better than I thought after 2 weeks. But I still wouldn't be placing any bets on any Bucs playoff games. But we'll see. It's a good win for them, for sure.
For sure. That concludes the podcast this week, going through every single week, 2 games on Sunday. There are 2 games on Monday, which I'll just get your predictions now. How do you feel the 2 games are going to get on tonight? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, the Saints, I think, are going to win. Because I think the Panthers looked pretty terrible in week 1. Saints defense looked better than I thought it was going to look. I'd say they're going to win, probably by touchdown plus. And in terms of the other game, I think that's going to be a typical AFC North absolute slobber knocker of like running the ball on 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, loads of sacks, probably a fight, probably some missed field goals. It feels like it's going to be a typical AFC North game. I'm biased because I hate the Browns, so I'm going to say the Steelers, but it wouldn't shock me at all because the Browns defense looks pretty good last week. Who have you got for tonight?
I'm going to match you. I think the Saints again. Hopefully we see more from them offensively as well. Obviously a much worse defense than the Titans one. They had played against last week. And then, I'm going for the Steelers, but I think it'll be very close, like you said. And mainly because, again, I picked the Steelers come second in the division, and I had Mike Tomlin as coach of the year. So I kind of just feel like I have to I have to sort of stick to that pick now, and hopefully the offense looks as good as it did in preseason, because against Niners it was awful.
Yeah, you need Kenny Pickett to look a little bit better, don't you, than last week? But we'll see. 2 games I'll be watching in the morning that I don't think I'll be staying up for, fortunately.
Yeah. But we'll see how bad these predictions age when people will listen to it tomorrow. We'll see. But thanks for joining me again, Liam. It's been great. Again, we'll have you on throughout the season, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, perfect, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me. And just a reminder, if anyone likes any betting content, go follow the podcast I'm on. It's on the same feed, so Full 10 Yards Betting Podcast. Me, Adam, and Tim. Thursday we record, break down the games for the weekend, or the primetime games, and then pick our spreads and totals. So that's a fun podcast. But it's been great chatting to you, mate. Hopefully I don't have to start to hate you when the Dolphins win more games than the Chiefs, because at the moment it's fine, but we'll see as the season goes on.
Frankfurt, bring on Frankfurt.
I'm going. So
are you going? Oh wow.
I'm going. Yeah, I'm going. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if you break my heart with Tyreek Hill 200 yards. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, this has been the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I've been Sam. He's been Liam, and we'll see you on Thursday when we break down every single game in week 3.